Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you might be joining from. I am HR Funk, and welcome to HR's Firing Line, the St. Patrick's Day 2024 edition. And this is got ahead of myself. This is the only online show dedicated to firearms that is completely dictated by your participation, your comments, and your questions. Otherwise, I would be sitting here looking like the human equivalent to a test pattern. And if you know what a test pattern is, you're probably over the age of 35. Um, this was sort of a spur of the moment thing this evening. I was sitting at home. Mimi is away taking care of some family business. And I thought, I've got the opportunity to fire up the computer for a live stream. And I have not had a chance to converse with all of you just with us for quite a while now. The last couple of live streams that I've had, we have featured guests. We had Jeremy from Control Solutions who was on, and we also had Mark and Slav from BH Spring Solutions a couple of days ago. And I have missed just having our opportunity to talk back and forth and our exchange that is always so enjoyable to me. And I was looking forward to this today, especially because I have been in basically a lousy mood today. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One of which is the weather. It seems like we'll have a couple of nice spring-like days here in northern Ohio, and then all of a sudden we'll have a string of days like this. And today it's been drifting back and forth from the mid 30s to the lower 40s. We've had some snow on and off, and it's just been kind of annoying. Um, and I've got that's bugging me. I've got this ongoing and ceaseless battle with YouTube that really is starting to get to me, I think. And I'm hoping that just having the chance for all of us to talk back and forth is going to help to improve my mood. Uh, I continue to see the videos that I'm posting that I've put a lot of time and effort into that get a relatively low number of views. And then I click onto YouTube and it comes up with all the suggested videos. And I'll start to watch some of those. And there are some of them that if it was my video, I would be embarrassed with some of the things that I see and some of the things that I hear. And I'll look at the video and it'll have like, 100,000 views, 500,000 views, something like that. And so that's annoying me. And I don't know. I guess I'm just in not the greatest mood in the world today. So I thought we could click on together and hopefully have a good evening with a live stream. And I know we've got a lot of you that have been waiting for a while now. Starting with Art Grote, he was the first one here. Hi, Art. Craig Benz is here. KD Cowboy, hope you finished your dinner, KD. Jeff Tim is here. And I'm just going to go down. Josh Twyman joined us. Rookie Spartan is here. Thomas White. And by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. That was another reason I thought I'd have the live stream. It is St. Patrick's Day. I hope you're all having a great weekend and a good St. Patrick's Day. Barry is here. Joe, I'm probably going to get your last name. Gashwind is here. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. And I think Joe Morgan is here. So I think I've gotten everyone so far. Tactics Legion 78 is here also. And according to the ticker over here, we've got 26 people who are in. Craig Benz talking about young people with revolvers, says they just don't get it. The young guys I know are actually interested in revolvers. You know what I think is weird, and I mentioned this in the live stream a couple of days ago with the guys from BH Spring Solutions. What I'm tending to see get very, very popular are a lot of what I'll call legacy designs or legacy platforms to include revolvers. But yeah, the P35 high power, how many different clones of that have sprung up over the last couple of years? Valter is making the PPK and PPKS again. SDS Industries is coming out with a brand new clone of the H&K MP5, and I'm really hoping to get my hands on one of those. I would love to be able to try one of those out. I tried a PTR version a few years ago, which I really enjoyed, and I would like to get my hands on one of the SDS/Mac versions. So keep your fingers crossed. I'm hoping I can get one of those. And let me check and see what else we got going on over here in the comment section. Talk about reloading. I for years and years and years, going back probably to the early 90s, maybe around 1990, have been an avid hand loader. And it's something that I've enjoyed both for the economy of hand loading as well as being able to tailor my ammunition to specific firearms and work up the most accurate loads that I can. And I got to say, over the last year or so, with how expensive and difficult components have been to find, I've not been loading very much. It almost seems like it's not worth the time and effort to put into it. Now, of course, tailoring loads to a specific rifle or a specific firearm, I should say, that still holds true. But the economy aspect of it, I don't know. When you factor in your time and how much time you have to devote to hand loading your ammunition, I'm not so sure it's cost effective anymore. Of course, then again, I go in and I look at the price of some ammunition on the shelves, and I think, how in the world does anybody afford to shoot this stuff? So I don't know. I guess hand loading still is beneficial, but it's certainly not as economical as it once was. By the way, if anyone wants to join as a guest, you can send me an email at hrfunk@zoominternet.net. You can see scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. I will send you a link to the show, and you can join as a guest. You can either join with your image being able to be seen and people will be able to hear you talking and all that, or if you want to join with voice only, you can do that. Either way, we can have a conversation back and forth. So if you're interested in joining as a guest, by all means, send me an email to that email address. I will get you a link to the show. And I'm not sure what happened there. Something weird just occurred with my screen. Let me see if I can fix it. There we go. And going back to the comment section over here. Nathan Huxtable, like my Walther with the Holosun 407K. Everyone is different. I've got the 507K, and I'm not entirely sure what the difference is between the 407 and the 507, but I've got the 507K on that Tizosh Carry DS that I've been working with for a while now. And overall, I like the sight, but I've got to say that issue that I've run into with not being able to get it properly zeroed at a distance of 25 yards is annoying me. I'm going to contact SDS, I believe, tomorrow and run this by them. I suppose there's a possibility that maybe the barrel is not set quite right inside the slide, and maybe that's causing those rounds to go lower than they should. But I don't know. There's some kind of issue there. It's not horrible. I'm about 2.5 inches low at 25 yards, and I have the elevation maxed out on the site, so I can't go any higher than that. But I'm hoping I can get that ironed out, and if I do, I'll get a report back to all of you as to what's going on and what it took to resolve the problem. Cowboy Casanova is here. Been busy with his day job. Just called the department he's processing with. They said they still don't have a time frame. That is just awful. It, with as desperate as departments are for new officers these days, it really strikes me as odd. Although I hope you don't mind me mentioning that you're in California, so I don't know what's going on out there. I don't know. Could be a budget issue, could be some sort of a regulatory issue. I don't have the first clue, but I wish you the best, and I hope that starts to move faster very soon. Jeff Tim, how many folks are still using antique calibers like 300 Savage, 35 Remington, and 4440? I've got a 35 Remington behind me in the safe here that I really like. I love that cartridge. It's one that periodically I stop and really wonder how far we've progressed in terms of metallic cartridges over the last 100 years. Um, Companies, ammunition companies, firearms companies, whoever, will come out every year with new cartridges and new chamberings, and they will claim that this is the newest, latest, greatest. Absolutely, never has been equaled before in the history of the world. Type of marketing, and the older I get, the more skeptical I get of that assertion, because when I look at something like the 35 Remington or the 30-06, both of which came out in 1906, fabulous cartridges that are just as capable today as they were 100 and almost 120 years ago, 118 years ago when they were first developed. And I look at some of the other ones, the 38 Super, developed in the late 1920s, 45 ACP, obviously from the early 1900s, and the 9 millimeter from what 18, going from memory here, I want to say 1898 for the 9 millimeter cartridge. Uh, I mean, cartridges that have been around forever, for over a century, that are still very, very capable. And still, we see something like the 30 Super Carry come out, or the 5.7 by 28 or something like that. I'm thinking, what does this do for us that hasn't been done just as well or better by something that's been around for a long time? Again, I'm getting older. I'm getting skeptical. I'm in a bad mood. So I don't know. Maybe some of you can help me out with that. Nathan Huxtable, 300 Savage. Absolutely. Great cartridge. More or less the ballistic older brother of the 308, which has been around since 1952, I think. 300 Savage is a great old cartridge. Not a thing wrong with it. And again, it'll still do just as well today as it did, all those years ago when it was first developed. 8 millimeter Mauser, another great cartridge. Happy National Drink Too Much Day. Probably depends a lot on which nation you're talking about there, Joe. KD Cowboy Funk is the family. Wait a second. It's a family name of German origin. It means spark and refers to the work of a smith. Yeah, my family heritage is German. I'm not sure why my collar is sticking out like that. Family heritage is German. Um, my son actually lived in Germany for a while when he was going to school. He went to college over there for some period of time, and he could actually he can speak German and could teach German if he so desired. Although he tells me he has no interest in doing that. But yeah, I have never been to Germany. I'd love to go back there sometime. I would love to see the country and maybe try to figure out where my ancestors came from. But I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll see what's in the cards as time marches on. Majesty, the crock pot corned beef turned out great for lunch day. Good for you. That sounds great. Tactics Legion 78 learned the hard way what happens when the tiny elevation screw on a Smith & Wesson 686 snaps, but you have no clue until you pop it off and the screw falls away. Yeah, those screws definitely cannot take tons and tons of torque. They will break. Steven Detweiler is here. How you doing, Steve? Craig Benz, 20 minute of angle for base for the sight. I think if I put anything underneath it, it's just going to make the problem worse because it's going to raise the sight that much more, even though it's an angled base. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to call SDS, I think, tomorrow and run this all by them and see if they're familiar with an issue, if it might be something to do with the slide cut. The slide is cut for the 507K slash RMSC type sites, basically the micro compact style sites. And mounting was extremely simple. I literally just screwed the thing onto the slide. There was no plate, no nothing, no muss, no fuss. So that part was great. The only part that's bugging me is that problem with trying to be able to adjust the elevation for a distance of 25 yards. Dan the Wolfman is here. How you doing, Dan? Always filming videos. I know what you mean. Elaine's Domain is here. How you doing, ED? Glad you made it. Okay, Rookie Spartan. I hear the song now in my mind. I'm gonna start dancing back. By the way, if my wife sees me dance, she like runs the other way. But, cool song though. Dan's urging people to have a couple more drinks. Jeff Tim, my wife is a genealogist. At a meeting, wait a second, it just took a jump. Meeting on a guy whose ancestors came from Germany, found the city, but the records were bombed, burned by the Brits during one night in 1944. I suppose that's always possible. For some reason, I've got this idea, and maybe this came from my son, that my ancestors came from a small town in Germany. So that might have escaped any sort of bombing or any other sort of damage during World War II, but I really don't know. Katie Cowboy, the new range I joined, allows lifelike targets. So I have two orders into Targets Online. There should be an HR Funk code, discount code. I agree. And that's something that when Targets Online agreed to sponsor the channel, and I really, really like those guys, great people. But a lot of times when people come on and you know, I'll start to talk about their products, they'll offer a discount code, and Targets Online to date has not. And I have no idea what their business model is like, what their profit margin is, or anything else. Maybe they just don't have the latitude to be able to do that. I don't know, but it might be something too. If you want to send them an email or give them a call, who knows? Maybe they'll fire one up for anybody that's interested. I love their targets. Targets are great, and they're pretty reasonably priced as they are. Flirting, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Joe Goshwin, yes, 30-06 is still a great great cartridge. James Sanos, I love European cartridges for hunting here in North America, specifically central Pennsylvania. My best loads are for the 6.5 by 55 Swede. Great cartridge, great old cartridge. And truthfully, the 6.5 by 55, when we think about the popularity of the 6.5 Creedmoor these days, the 6.5 by 55 is not all that far behind it. And 9.3 by 62 for wild boar. I've never hunted a wild boar. That might be kind of fun. Jeff Tim, my ancestors came from Mecklenburg, but it was an area the size of Maine, now in Poland. Okay. Yeah, and again, I would really like to get to that region someday, that part of Europe. I've been to the UK several times, which has been great. I went to France once, which we went to Normandy. We saw the Omaha Beach, and we saw Pont de Houx, and we saw, you know, a lot of where the D-Day invasion took place. That was fabulous. I really, really enjoyed that trip, but I've not been any farther into Europe. So I would love to make it to Germany, maybe see some of Poland, you know, that whole area or that whole section of Europe. I would love to make it to someday. Mark Becker is here. How do you, Mark? Jeff Tim, compare the 6.5 by 55 Swede to the new U.S. Army caliber. What are you saying, Jeff? Are you suggesting that somehow or another the U.S. military is now copying a cartridge that's been around forever? Mike Sims, did you know a Sergeant Major Lewis? He told me about your channel before he passed last year. Sergeant Major Lewis. Sergeant Major Lewis. Not off the top of my head, but if he was someone who watched the videos and had a different screen name, I might not have known him, or might not have known him by that name, but that doesn't sound familiar. Gnarly Town, the Irish have the best poets. Cormac McCarthy, in my opinion, is the best in English. It's often compared to Faulkner. Cool. I'm not familiar with him, but I'm about to look some of that up. He's much closer to James Joyce, another Irish master. Cool. Katie Cowboy, my father was stationed in Germany during the Korean War. He was lucky. I was stationed in Korea during the Cold War. You know what? I got to tell you, when I think back about that time, I was in Korea for about 6 months. For my overseas tour, I was in Korea for about 6 months and Japan for about 6 months. And I really enjoyed that time that I was there. Korea at the time was very inexpensive. The US dollar was still, the exchange rate made the US dollar very high compared to the Korean won. And, we were able to travel around the country and see all kinds of things and do all kinds of things. So I really got to do a lot. I was there in 1988, which was the year the Olympics were in Seoul, Korea. And I was not able to be there for the Olympics. I was back in Japan at that time. But I did go up to Seoul when they were practicing for the opening games, and I was able to stand there at the gate and look into the Olympic Stadium and watch them practicing for I said the opening games, the opening ceremonies. Able to see that. That was cool. Seoul was cool. And you know what? I think I just saw something within the last week or so talking about Yongsan Army Base, which is more or less in the middle of Seoul. That sounds like they're either closing it down or have closed it down. So if anybody has any news on that, let me know. And Mark Becker, have not bought the Colt Python. Do you think it's worth it? It's hard for me to answer that question for you. I d- ha- a Python has always been one of those firearms in the back of my mind that I've wanted. Back when I was much younger, that was sort of like the iconic 357 Magnum revolver. And I can remember back during the 1980s, there was a TV show, and I can't remember now. It was one of those ones like Simon and Simon or something like that, where one of the main characters in there carried a Colt Python. I can remember watching that thinking, "Wow, that is like the coolest revolver in the world." Always kind of wanted one, and nowadays I look at them and I look at that price of around $1,500 or thereabouts, and I think, "Man alive, that's expensive." Of course, if you look at one of the older ones, they're even more than that. So I guess, Mark, it just depends on uh, how important that is to you to have a Python. When I look at my Smith& Wesson 686, which does everything that could reasonably be expected of a Python for quite a bit less money, I don't know. Uh, that's really hard for me to say. I guess what I can say is I've never been able to justify the purchase of a Python myself. Loves Dogs 1954. Go back a few to Stephen Detweiler's question. Okay, I must have missed one. Let me look here. I'm scrolling back up. I've carried the same defense rounds in my Hellcat for about 6 to 9 months. Is it time to rotate them? 6 to 9 months isn't really all that long. Usually, back at the police department, I like to rotate ammunition every year, and probably even that was a little. I don't know. I don't think it was premature, but I also didn't want to wait till we were starting to have issues with, powder starting to degrade or anything else. I can remember back in the day, and this goes back, oh man, 25 years ago or so. At our range for the police department, we had an outdoor storage locker, and somebody years before I ever went to work for the police department put a bunch of ammunition in there. It was a bunch of old, 38s and 357s and one thing and another. And it sat there for years and years and years. By the time we had, changed over to the 9 millimeter cartridge in the early 1990s. So somewhere in the mid to late 1990s, I was out there one day with one of my revolvers, and I decided to try out some of that ammunition, which had been in there for probably the better part of a decade. Now, these lockers were not climate controlled, so they were subjected to, high heat in the summertime and low temperatures in the wintertime, and the humidity varied to whatever it was. And I pulled out some of that old ammunition, and I remember shooting that stuff. It was like bang, bang, pop, pop, bang. So clearly over time, when it's not in a climate controlled environment, the ammunition can start to degrade. And I never wanted to have that happen with our duty ammunition, so I always had it cycled out annually. And I would say, unless your ammunition is really subjected to a lot of temperature and humidity extremes, you're probably okay carrying it for a year before you change over. Now, the one caveat I would say is, if you're using a semi-auto, make sure you're rotating whatever the top cartridge is in the magazine, because if you're always cycling that same round in day after day after day, it can start to cause the bullet to pull from the casing, and eventually you might get a functioning issue from that, due to the fact that the bullet is, or the overall case length is getting longer and longer and longer. But otherwise, just carrying the stuff for 6 to 9 months, I don't think you really need to change yet. Uh, Steve Detweiler, my great grandfather, General Detweiler, was the advisor to the Kaiser in World War I. Wow. Advice wasn't good, they lost. Well, he probably did his best anyway. Floridian's dad was in Korea 52 to 53. Vegas AB just got the notification. Yeah, this was sort of a spur of the moment type thing to this evening. Or I'm not sure what time it is in the Philippines. So you'll have to let me know. But I was saying earlier, Mimi is gone this evening. She's taking care of some family business. I'm home by myself. And I was just looking to have a conversation with everyone, because I have not been able to do that for a while. So that was the reason. And we're up to 43 people in here, which is cool. Justic Mike is here. Glad you joined us. Craig Benz, always hear people say how cool their Python is, never how tough. Love Dog, Starsky. That's right. Starsky and Hutch, or on Starsky and Hutch, they had a Python. I forgot about that. Jeff Tim, Starsky and Hutch. Starsky carried the 6-inch Python. Hutch carried an early Beretta 92. You know what? I thought he had a Smith & Wesson 59. I'm almost positive that I remember that 59 in the opening scene. And somebody else just jumped in there too. Loves Dog 1954 said the same thing. Like all boomers want things from our past. Trucks, guns. Hey, I'm not a boomer. Technically, I'm a Gen Xer, so get that straight. Ford Torino. My parents had a Ford Torino, which was a cool car. Albert Michael, Grand Torino. Yeah, I think theirs was a Grand Torino, now that I think about it. Mike Sims, are you familiar with the Inner Arms Virginian Dragoon? The first pistol I ever bought was one in 44 mag. As a matter of fact, I am. I almost bought one of those years ago, and I ended ended up instead getting a Ruger Super Blackhawk. That was my first ever 44 Magnum, and I used that for hunting for several years when handgun hunting first became legal here in Ohio. I actually took several deer with that Super Blackhawk, but it was back and forth between that and the Virginian Dragoon, and I went with the Blackhawk. Craig Benz, still no notification. Sorry about that, Craig. Jeff Tim, Fort Hood in the 1970s found a load of 38 special World War II ammo stored under an overhead shelter in Texas. Mostly worked when tested, but about 90% looked good and fired the rest swat. Really? Of course, down in Texas, I remember when I was down there for military police training, and we were at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. And if they were stored in something that was not climate controlled, if it was subjected to that heat and the deviations in temperature, I can imagine that powder probably deteriorated over time. Katie Cowboy, New York City now has subway National Guard troops, but they're riding the subway cars. They are not riding the subway cars where they need it. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen video of that where they're kind of hanging out in the subway stations and places like that, but they're not actually on the trains. Mopar or no car. Elaine's Domain, my pal had a RS SS 396 1968 Camaro. Cool. I think I've talked about this before. My very first car was a 1969 Firebird, and I thought it was like the greatest race car in the history of the world. It was a piece of junk. It had a couple of fenders were not the same color as the rest of the car. I didn't care. It had a 350. It had a four speed with a Hurst shifter, and I thought I had like the race car. I jockeyed together this homemade stereo system for it that included some like actual home stereo speakers that I had laying on my back seat. Oh man, it was a piece of junk, but I thought I was like the coolest guy ever because I had a 1969 Firebird. Steve Detweiler, got 3 mags for my Hellcat. Keep them loaded all the times that week in the spring. No. What weekend springs is actually putting them under a load and then cycling them all the way to their empty, putting them under the load. So basically being worked or compressed and released over time will eventually weaken the spring, but modern springs last for a long, long time. I've had some magazines that have been loaded for years, and I'll throw them into a firearm and shoot them, and they work just fine. So I don't think you have to worry too much about your Hellcat springs, especially because the Hellcat springs are kind of stiff to begin with. Albert Michael, love it, Sarge. Dan the Wolfman, I haven't had an old defensive jacketed hollow point not go off. Good stuff is sealed. Yeah, a lot of the premium stuff has sealer around the primer and sealer around the bullet to make sure that it is not going to have any kind of ingress of humidity or moisture or whatever. But even so, if it's subjected to temperature extremes over time, that will eventually start to cause the powder to degrade. And it's funny too because I've had some people think that ammunition over time is kind of like dynamite, where it gets to the point where it's unstable, and if you look at it wrong, it's going to explode. And actually, ammunition goes the other way; it just gets weaker and weaker and weaker over time if it's not stored in proper conditions. If it's stored in proper conditions, then it lasts indefinitely. Every once in a while, you'll hear somebody that opens a bunker that hasn't been opened since World War II or something like that, and they find a bunch of old 30-06 ammunition or something. And as long as it's been stored in cool, dry conditions, the stuff is still just fine. Jeff Tim, always been a Micro Blaster fan. Had a Dodge Colt RS. Hold on, it just took a jump. Bought the year before they put the turbo. Dodge Colt RS with an 8-speed transmission. Wow. I don't think I've ever even seen an 8-speed. My Jeep has a 6-speed manual transmission, which is about as much shifting as I want to do. Katie Cowboy, first car in 1973 Ford Pinto. It was literally a bomb. If you were rear-ended, yeah. Remember the old NBC News report about the Pinto, and they doctored it so that it blew up when it got rear-ended and all that. They dealt with the lawsuits. Yeah, it's a business decision. Mark Becker, do Magpul Gen 2 mags work with wait a second. Work when stored full mag deformity. Okay, I see what you're talking about. Um, so far as I know, they do. I know Magpul includes those little clips that go over the top and sort of compresses the ammunition so it's not pressing directly against the feed lips. But I've had Magpul magazines that have been loaded for a long, long time, and I've not run into an issue with them yet. Mike Sims just took out an old 1911 double stack last week. Mags have been loaded for 8 to 10 years. They've been fine. Yeah, if they've just been under a load all that time, they should work just fine. Steve Detweiler, first car was a Pontiac Le Mans. There was a cool car. I should have kept it. Jeff Tim, Mitsubishi didn't have room for a 5-speed transaxle, so they added an extra gear set to give you 2 sticks, a high and low range transaxle. I don't think I remember that. Katie Cowboys, anyone picked up a new Smith & Wesson 1854 lever action? I have not, but I did watch that video. You sent me the link or the link to. And that trigger issue is a little weird. I think I mentioned that it looks like they more or less copied the Marlin action with the 1854. And the Marlin is kind of known for having that trigger that has the Marlin flop. But the one in the 1854 looks like it's even more severe yet than the Marlin. So that's kind of weird. Mark Hankins, while serving on Marine security guard duty in the Honduras, flew to Guatemala to visit fellow Marines. Uh, who do I run into at the Guatemala City airport? But David Soul. Really? He wasn't carrying his 357 Python. That's cool. And he just died. Mimi just told me that David Soul died like within the last week or so. So that's too bad. Peter Cole, I thought it was cool in 1968 with my Mercury Cougar. The Mercury Cougars were cool. Where'd that go? Now I lost that one. Oh, there it is. With the Mercury Cougar, when I went to Navy flight school, that was a cool car. And remember the Cougars had those hideaway headlights that I always thought was cool. They would turn them on and they would open up and then turn them off. And they would close. Rabbi is here. How you doing, Rabbi? Glad you joined us. Joe Gashwind, a few years ago, answered an ad for a 44 mag because everyone needs one for $800. The old guy handed it to me for inspection. Turned out to be an Anaconda. Okay. Give it back to him and told him I couldn't. You're a good man, Joe. A lot of cougars from 1968. I think you're talking about a different kind of cougar, Rabbi. gave it back and suggested he change the price on his ad. Yeah, that was, very honorable of you. There's a lot of people that wouldn't have done they would have forked over 800 bucks and then ran out of there before he changed his mind. Mark Hankins played basketball for the University of Honduras. Wow. People there were very humble and kind. Yeah, never have been to Central America. The farthest south I've been is Mexico, and that was just a couple of years ago, which was an absolutely fabulous trip. I went down there. My daughter-in-law's family is from Mexico, and we went down there with them and stayed in their family home and just had a wonderful time in the city of Morelia, Mexico. And I would love to go back. And it's funny because it's not one of the tourist trap destinations. It's not like going to Cancun or something like that. It was really, I think, being able to experience Mexican culture as it would be in small town Mexico, and it's just fabulous, fabulous time that we had down there. And we've been at this for about 41 minutes now, so time is flying. A couple of channel announcements with things that I've got coming up. We're going to have a new handgun review video coming soon. This is one that I've been kind of semi interested in for a while, and got the House of Pain the other day, and they had one of these hanging on the wall, so they were kind enough to loan it to me. So you'll see that coming soon. Um, I've got a completely different type of video that's going to be coming up. Trying to decide if I want to let it go live tomorrow or if I want to hold on to it a little bit longer. And when you guys see this, you're going to think, okay, this is the one he was talking about because it is like nothing you have ever seen on the channel before. By the way, if you didn't see the short that I did that was titled Training Private Chewy, go back and watch that. I'm channeling Lee Ermey in that video, and I thought that was fun. So it's only about 30 seconds, 36 seconds, something like that long. It was fun video. I am thinking about something, and I'm going to throw this out there for your comments. Um, Starting something that I'll call Throwback Thursday. And what I'm thinking about doing is on Thursdays producing probably not a long video, but a kind of short video where I go back and look at a firearm that I have previously reviewed that I've now had for a period of time. And I can give more information on that firearm from a historical perspective, or at least history with me perspective. So it's something that's been bouncing around in my mind here lately. Let me know what you think of that. If you think it's a good idea or not. And another thing I've had kind of in my mind uh, that I'm thinking about doing, and this is one of those where I think it seems like a good idea, but then again, I just don't know if people are going to watch it because I've said this before, the thing that gets views in YouTube firearms videos are the newest, latest, and greatest. That's if you look at the channels that get lots and lots and lots of views, they've got access to whatever the most recently released firearms are, or they've got contacts at the various manufacturers who are feeding them firearms, so they've always got that, and they can always put it out there. So my idea for a series is on rifle scope basics, where I can go back and talk about uh, you know my history with rifle scopes, what's worked well, what I've found to work with them, what reticles work the best, all the different specifics from tube diameter to exit pupil to twilight factor to whatever. So let me know if you guys think that's a good idea or not. It's just something I've had in mind for a while, along with the Throwback Thursday idea. Let me know what you think of that. Um, One other thing to throw out there: if you saw my video yesterday, you know that I was talking about the Tizosh 2011 Carry DS pistol and the training that I have the ability to go to that's going to be coming up in July. And I thought, maybe instead of me selecting the handgun that I take to that training, I should do some sort of a survey, or not survey, that's not, but let all of you sort of vote over time, like come out with a group of firearms and say, everybody says whatever. They vote on this or that or whatever, whichever one gets the least number of votes, I take that one out. And then there's still however many left, and then time goes by and everybody votes, and whatever gets the least number of votes, I take that one out. Kind of like a survivor type thing, only for handguns, and then whichever one ends up winning is the one that I'll take to that training in July. So let me know what you think of that idea too. And thank you, Rabbi, for a donation of $10. Uh, you are far too generous. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. I appreciate that greatly. And now let me go back and see what some of the comments are on here, because I've been ignoring them because I've been babbling. And I'm just scrolling through here looking for comments that are directed at me. St. Andrew, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Dan the Wolfman did a really funny sevens proof. I saw that. I actually watched that video. That was funny. Rabbi, long term tells the real story. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And for some of these that I haven't talked about, like I mentioned earlier, my Marlin 336 and 35 Remington or something like that, that I recorded a video on, which is, I don't know if it's been 10 years or so ago, but it's been a long time, to come back and revisit that and talk about it again. Steve Detweiler, know nothing about scopes. That's why I was thinking about doing that. Just almost like a primer. I've used rifle scopes professionally. I've used them competitively. I've used them for hunting. I've used them recreationally. So I thought, yeah, and I do not consider myself a scope expert. I don't consider myself any kind of an expert as far as that goes. I don't even like the term, but I've learned a few things over the years. I've developed some opinions, and I thought maybe I could share those with some of you that might find it helpful. Rabbi, mounting scopes is a struggle for me. I actually made some videos. This is, oh man, 6 or 8 years ago, probably, maybe longer, where I was, going over scope mounting procedures and one thing and another, and they got like, I don't know, 3 views or something, not more than that, but not very many. Kind of like my 1911 disassembly and reassembly videos; those got like no views. Again, whenever I put up a instructional video where I'm trying to pass on information about techniques or procedures or whatever, uh, comparatively, those get very, very few views. Everybody believes they know, you know, everything there is to know about a lot of things. What they want to see is the newest, latest, flashy firearm or what have you. So, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I could revisit some of those topics again. Try to do some like optics installation videos or something. Maybe these days they get more views than they did back in 2013 or whenever I first put them up. Lane's domain. My scopes make things look closer. That's good. That's the idea. They should look bigger when you look through the scope. Mark Becker planned on taking your 1911. Gnarly Town referenced my previous comment. Cormac McCarthy, who self identified with his Irish heritage by changing his name to Charles Cormac, is very much an Irish writer. He wrote No Country for Old Men. Really? I had no idea, none whatsoever. Max Power, your Earth beside you does not look flat. What? That's because you're only seeing it from this side. You can't tell that it's, basically cut in half and the other side is completely flat. KD Cowboy just bought the Sig Sauer MSR Tango 1 to 6. Just use that line on the side to level it. You know what? You have to be careful with that line because what I noticed with mine is it's not absolutely perfectly between the halves of the rings. It's actually a little bit, it's probably about 4 or 5 degrees above what would be the center line on the left-hand side of the rings to have that perfectly level. So it gives you an idea, but you still have to make sure you're taking a look at that and making sure it's perfectly level. Jeff Tim taking a look at the pictures of Starsky and Hutch, 59 in most pics. That's what I thought. I thought that was a 59. Dan the Wolfman, almost all gun tubers have some marketing company they shill for whatever they are told to shill, whatever day they are told to shill for. Unfortunately, I do not. I don't have anybody who's feeding me firearms or sending me anything that they want me to whatever toe the company line for. And it's one of the really nice things with House of Pain, since they're a retailer. I can say whatever I want because that's not their firearm. They don't manufacture it or whatever. And truthfully, if I have a bad review on something, that potentially saves them from having a dissatisfied customer who might come in and purchase that same firearm. So I really like that. I have a very similar relationship with Optics Planet. Same thing. They're a retailer. They're not a manufacturer. So if I get something from them and I say this thing is garbage, they're they don't care. They're not upset by that. That actually saves them from having a dissatisfied customer. And truthfully, I've gotten some feedback from some manufacturers where I've talked about something and not been happy with it, and they've taken that as constructive criticism, which is what I'm hoping for, and made changes to their product. So that's nice as well. Loves Dogs 1954 watched every show of Starsky and Hutch. You need to get a life. Just kidding. KD Cowboy, I guess I need a real avid $200 gun fight. You know what? I really like that thing. Uh, uh, we went to the NRA annual meeting last year, and we saw the real avid display, and they had those vices there, and it was some kind of a special for. I think the special was $200 or something like that. And Mimi actually ordered that vice for me, and it came, I don't know, a week or so later. And I really like it. And it seems like every time I turn around, I'm finding some new way to use it. For me, to be able to use it in the videos and spin that thing around and show a firearm in different orientations and things like that is great. They also have a new item that they're marketing currently that can attached to the vise, and it's got these flexible arms that come around, and one of them has a magnifying glass, and one of them has a light, and one of them has a holder for an iPhone. I've got to get one of those things. They cost about $100, and that would be so nice when I'm recording a video to be able to put my phone camera above that in whatever position I need and be able to light it up with a light. And when I'm working on things, to be able to have that magnifying glass to be able to see what I'm doing a little bit better. So look for one of those coming soon. I forget what they call the thing, but I really need to get one of those. Nathan Huxtable, we should send the chief with something fun like a black powder revolver. I have this rogue notion of taking a revolver to that training course and shooting through it with something like my 686 or whatever. I think that would be fun. I'm sure people would look at me like I had two heads if I showed up with a wheel gun for that. And I don't think I said this in a video. The instructor for this is going to be a former U.S. Army Special Forces soldier, and it's a law enforcement only course that he's going to be teaching. And I know everybody's going to show up there with the latest greatest semi-auto, the latest greatest Glock, and it would be kind of fun to walk in there with a wheel gun and watch everybody go. Loves Dogs 1954 now have two first versions of the Model 59. I was at a gun show yesterday. I went to the gun show in Talmadge, Ohio, and somebody there had a Model 59. The thing looked really, really nice. It was obviously used and had a few minor blemishes, but really nice bluing. And I forget what the price was on it. It wasn't bad. I want to say it was in the $600, 650 range, something like that. And I thought about it on the way by. I don't need it. It serves no purpose in my collection whatsoever, but it definitely caught my eye. That was one of the few firearms there that really caught my eye as I was walking around looking at different things. Steve Detweiler, you have a much bigger channel now. Haven't watched your videos from 10 years ago. Came across you when you were about 16,000 or so. I'm sure there are a few things you could redo that would be great. Yeah, that's what I think. Back then when I had whatever I had in those days, 9,000 subscribers, 12,000 subscribers, and I'm not minimizing those subscribers. I'm happy I had them at the time. I'm happy that I have the number of subscribers that I have now, but there might be some people that are hearing things or seeing firearms that I'm talking about that I did that were not around back in those days. So that's kind of why I was thinking about that with the whole Throwback Thursday idea. And maybe I won't do it every Thursday. Maybe I'll do it periodically, once or twice a month or something like that. I haven't completely nailed down that concept yet, but it's just something I was thinking of. Mike Sims, just getting into long range shooting. I would appreciate any info on scopes. I'll go back and check for your videos on scopes. Okay, yeah, I've got quite a few, scope reviews. I've got scope mounting videos. These go back quite a number of years, but if you go far enough back in the video history, you'll find them. Yeah, KD, that's what I was talking about. That Smart Assist accessory with the 180 lumen work light and the magnifying glass and all that. Apparently, what you're looking at is a bundle with that. What I was looking at was just the accessory itself. And it's about $100 just by itself. Jeff Tim, how about a wild card, the SW99? I was thinking about the P99, which I actually have on my belt right now. I was carrying my P99 final edition today. Word of Prussia, what would you recommend in lieu of the FPC or a response? I'll tell you what, when I get, or if I get, I should say, because I don't know if I'm going to get one, this Mac 5, which is a clone of the H&K MP5, that might be one that I would recommend for sort of the historic provenance of that platform, which goes all the way back to the 1960s, which is just cool. It's compact. When I went to submachine gun instructor training, which is, when was that? Back in the later 2007, 2008, something like that. I went to my first submachine gun instructor course, and that was the first time I shot an MP5. And I was just amazed at how controllable those were with the delayed roller blowback system. I was shooting a Colt submachine gun at the time, and both that and the MP5 were chambered for the 9mm cartridge. And the Colt submachine gun was a straight blowback, whereas the MP5 was a delayed roller delayed blowback. And the the Colt submachine gun wasn't bad, but you got a lot more recoil impulse from that reciprocating mass of the bolt from the Colt submachine gun. When I shot the MP5, it was just wonderful. It was amazing to me how much more controllable it was. The Mac 5 is going to be more expensive than either the FPC or the Response, but truthfully, There's a lot of cool factor there. There's a lot of design enhancement over and above what Smith& Wesson is putting out. I'm not impressed by all the plastic they're using. So I would say at this point, wait until I am able to get one of those things and review it. I mean, maybe I won't like it. Maybe I'll get it and it's going to have poor functioning, or something else is going to occur that I'm not going to like with it. But that's definitely one that's in the running that I might recommend over and above the FPC or the Response. Dan the Wolfman, which companies are good at wanting actual feedback? Right off the top is Hilux Optics. You know, those guys, I love working with them. You know, I send them information back, and they will. Uh, they're very receptive to that. SDS Imports, the Tizosh pistols and firearms have been very receptive to those. EAA has been very receptive. You know, they're the ones that actually sent me a pistol to shoot or to use after I had one that I reviewed poorly, because they felt that one was an anomaly. Charter Arms has been very responsive. It seems like the smaller manufacturers are much, much more receptive to that and much more responsive. You know, when you get into the large manufacturers, you know, and maybe that's to be expected. They can't necessarily change their product line at the drop of a hat. You know, Hot Munitions. I had an issue with some of their ammunition a while back. Got a hold of them, went over there that day, and they pulled the ammunition off the shelf that I was having the problem with and replaced it with. And the problem was an issue with the uh, crimp of the bullet, which was causing me some functioning issues. So I get that a lot from companies that are not the huge manufacturers. And it's a lot of fun. It's part of the reason I really like working with the smaller manufacturers. I get a much more personal relationship with them. Uh, and I enjoy that. I like that feeling that, you know, I'm not talking to this gigantic company of Hilux Optics. No, I'm talking to Chris. I'm talking to uh, oh shoot, his name just went right out of my mind. Anyway, I'm talking to guys that I know, or if I go to House of Pain, I'm talking to Sean, I'm talking to Jeremy, I'm talking to people like that that I'm literally on a first name basis with. So that I really, really enjoy that. Craig, the FPC is the folding pistol carbine that Smith& Wesson is putting. That's the side folder 9mm carbine. Large manufacturers. Not necessarily. I mean, they've just got a different dynamic. They've got different, um, I guess, pressures that they have to deal with. So I get that. I really don't want to criticize them too badly, but I just really prefer to work with the smaller guys. Steve Detweiler, ever think about using the family farm for a range day with subscribers, 10 to 20 subscribers with a gun giveaway or something? Yeah, I have wanted to do something like that forever. And when I had the meet and greet at House of Pain on Veterans Day last year, I was hoping maybe that would be something kind of sort of along the lines with that. And we had, I don't know, maybe 20 or 25 people show up there that were there basically to say hi and be able to. Yep. Hold on a second, everyone. You have to bear with me for a second here till I get everything restored. Okay. And hold on a second. I'll be right back. And I'm back just like that. That was a call from Miss Mimi, so I had to take that one. But anyway, back to the comments here. So anyway, Steve, to answer your question or finish answering your question, yes, I've thought about doing that a number of times. Shooter 120, best St. Patrick's Day arrest you ever made? Yeah, I don't remember an arrest on St. Patrick's Day. What I remember is a SWAT team operation where we were going to serve a high risk warrant on a known drug location. And this was actually in a city that's probably 6 or 7 miles north of here. And it was probably a day just about like this, cold and just not very nice out. And I was deploying ahead of the team as a sniper to be able to provide intel back to them as they were making their final preparations and making their approach to this location, and everything. So I got dropped off ahead of time. And I got dropped off about a mile from this location. And the place where we were serving this warrant was back a long lane. And there was this swampy area that was right along the road where I got dropped off. And I had to negotiate my way through the swamp to get to a position. And my position was about 200 yards away from this house. And as I was making my way through this swamp, and of course, this was all unfamiliar terrain to me. I'd never been, and again, this is another city where it was not where I worked. So I'm starting to make my way through here. All of a sudden, I find out in the middle of this swamp, there is a small pond that's deep enough that I didn't want to walk through it. So I'm trying to make my way around the edge of this thing. It's dark out. I've got all my gear. I've got my rifle. I've got my comm gear. I got everything else. And as I'm making my way around the edge of it, I'm getting closer and closer to the driveway that goes back to this house. Of course, I get about halfway there and this car comes driving down the driveway. So I've got to I drop down into a push-up position in the water. So the water actually was up above my chest as if you imagine me in a push-up position, I'm like this. So my comm gear is in the water, my cell phone is in the water, all this stuff is in the water. The car goes by, doesn't see me. I get back up, make it all the way to my position that I was going to take up, which was one that I think I had a map or a satellite view, something that I picked out ahead of time. And one of the things as a sniper you have to do is plan your movement, pick your location where you're going to be, all that kind of thing. Get into position, and I start trying to send my intel back to the team, and all of my equipment that was underwater is now dead. So I can't communicate, can't get any, but I was able to hear them. This was weird. Nothing would transmit, but I could hear, and they're trying to call me, trying to find out what's going on, everything else. There was another sniper team, and I was by myself. I didn't have a spotter. There was another sniper team that was back to the rear of this house. They're sending intel back. Everybody's asking what's going on with me. I can't respond to them. Finally, the team shows up. They make their way back. They serve the warrant. I'm watching through my scope, making sure that they don't have any issues that might require some intervention by me. There was nothing. They were able to make their entry, take the or secure everybody, serve the warrant, find the drugs, all that kind of thing. Finally, they come driving back at the end, and there I am with all my stuff dripping wet, everything else. What happened to you? So now I got to tell the story about what happened. And that's just one of the stories of what it's like to be a law enforcement tactical team sniper. And now I don't know where I was in the comment section. Paul Woodall had an EAA revolver that was crap. That's too bad. Went back 3 times for warranty work, sold it for a Smith & Wesson 686. Russ Michael just got back from the range. Hope you had a good time with your lever action. And I'm looking down through here. Looks like you guys are talking back and forth to each other and looking for another comment directed at me. Shooter 120, no luck of the Irish, not for me. Albert Michael, like the story. Yeah, it's a better story than it was an experience. All right, gang, we have been at this for about an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to start wrapping things up. Thank you to everyone who has joined the live stream tonight. We're 45 people that are in here, and I don't know if I have not been paying attention to see what the high viewer number was, but 45 people at the moment. So thank you very much. I appreciate all the interaction, all the conversation. Uh, you guys, as I've said so many times, I say you guys, all of you, my viewers, make the YouTube experience for me. It is definitely not the experience of dealing with YouTube or anything else. It is definitely interacting with all of you. Thank you. Special thank you to my channel members who make a monthly contribution. Thank you, Rabbi, for a $10 donation this evening. I appreciate that. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your St. Patrick's Day. And when you see this video that goes live, the one that I said is not going to be like anything you've ever seen on the channel again, or anything you've ever seen on the channel before, or maybe anything you'll ever see again, you will definitely know what I'm talking about. So thanks again. Have a great day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'll catch you the next time around. And until then, everyone, good shooting and bye bye for now.